The mistake that changed everything. Friday night in Chicago carried that biting October chill that made people walk faster along the streets of the Magnificent Mile. The golden lights of Aurelia, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, reflected in the windows of the surrounding luxury shops. Inside, the atmosphere was controlled. Soft piano music, hushed conversations, the discreet clink of crystal glasses. Elena Hartley straightened her impeccable black uniform and smiled automatically at the couple who had just entered. 27 years old, with brown hair tied in an elegant bun, green eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. She had been the head hostess at the Aurelia for 3 years, long enough to recognize bored millionaires, extramarital affairs disguised as business dinners and thinly veiled indecent proposals. "Good evening, whose name is this reservation?" she asked in that voice trained to sound warm without being invasive. The man, in a gray suit and graying hair, replied something she'd entered into the system. Another night, another 8 hours of smiling, guiding people to their desks, pretending everything was perfectly fine in his life. But nothing was right. Her phone vibrated in her blazer pocket. Elena waited for the couple to walk away before checking. It was Marissa, her only true friend in this vast, indifferent city. "Where are you? We need to talk about that matter. Urgent." Elena bit her lower lip. That subject, the child, the lie that grew bigger every day like an uncontrolled snowball rolling down a mountain. She typed quickly, her fingers trembling slightly. "I'm working until 11 p.m. Then I go straight home. I can't leave her alone for too long." So without thinking, because she was torn between serving another customer who had just arrived and replying to the message, Elena clicked the location icon and sent her coordinates. It was faster than typing the restaurant's address. At least that's what she thought. The problem? Elena didn't send it to Marissa. In her haste, her finger tapped Damien C., a contact that had been automatically saved 3 weeks ago when she dialed the wrong number trying to reach the emergency pediatrician. The call dropped before either of them could say anything more than, "Hello," but the number had registered. Elena didn't even notice her mistake. She put away her phone, took a deep breath, and returned to the character she played every night. The perfect hostess, always smiling, always available. Across the city, atop a mirrored glass skyscraper on Wacker Drive, Damien Cross gazed at the Chicago skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. 32 years old, made of sharp angles and calculated silences, a navy blue Tom Ford suit, slicked back black hair, and blue eyes that seemed to pierce through you like emotional x-rays. He expected coordinates. Marcus Feng, his lawyer and only relative of a friend, was supposed to send him the location of a discreet meeting with a Chinese investor who didn't want to be seen in obvious places. Billion-dollar deals weren't done in conventional offices. They were done in hidden restaurants, in the basements of art galleries, in places where discretion trumped comfort. When Damien's phone vibrated, he didn't even check the name. He just opened the location. Aurelia Restaurant, 232E Ontario, St. He frowned. The Aurelia? That didn't make sense. Marcus had suggested a seat in the West Loop, something more low-key. Why move to one of the city's hottest restaurants? Before I could question it, another message arrived. "Sorry, I think I sent it to the wrong number. Please ignore." Damien stared at his phone screen as if she had just insulted his intelligence. Wrong number? He never received text messages from wrong numbers. No one had access to Damien Cross's personal cell phone. That number was guarded as if it were a state secret. Curious, he scrolled up and saw the history. Just that one missed call from 3 weeks ago. No conversation, no context. Who was this person? Why was he sending coordinates to a restaurant and then apologizing so humanly? There was something about that message, something genuine. No attempt to impress, no social games, just an honest mistake followed by an embarrassed emoji. Damien Cross hadn't known genuine honesty in years. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the leather chair and called his driver. "Go to Aurelia, Ontario Street, now." "Sir, you have the meeting with..." "Cancel." As he descended in the private elevator, Damien did something he hadn't done in a long time. He acted on impulse. He instructed the driver to stop at a still-open flower shop on Rush Street. He went in, bought a bouquet of red roses, 12 to be precise, and returned to the car without explanation. 20 minutes later, he was standing in front of the Aurelia. Elena was guiding a group of executives to their table when she felt the temperature of the restaurant change. Not literally, but there was a different energy in the air. The conversation seemed to drop in volume for a second. She turned towards the entrance. And he saw him. Tall, maybe 6 feet tall. A suit that probably cost more than 3 months' salary. Broad shoulders, straight posture, chin slightly raised. And, incongruously, holding a bouquet of red roses as if it were the most natural thing in the world for a man like that to show up alone with flowers at a fancy restaurant on a Friday night. Elena felt her stomach churn. He was looking directly at her. Not around her, not over her. For her. "Excuse me," Elena murmured to the executives before returning to the podium at the entrance where the man was already waiting. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Not because of his height or his posture, but because of his eyes. Those blue eyes that seemed to be asking 15 silent questions at once. "Good evening, sir," Elena said, automatically activating professional mode. "Reservation in the name of. You sent a location to my number 23 minutes ago," he said bluntly. His voice was deep, controlled. "And then you apologized." Elena's world stopped spinning. No. She felt the blood drain from her face. She picked up her phone with trembling hands and opened the messaging app. Damien C. "Oh God. I'm so sorry, I'm really," she began, but the words died away as he held out the bouquet of roses toward her. "I thought since you shared your location it would be polite to show up in person," he said, and there was something close to amusement in his eyes. "I'm Damien Cross." Elena picked up the flowers mechanically, completely lost. "Elena," she answered weakly. "Elena Hartley." "Nice to meet you, Elena Hartley." He inclined his head slightly. "Now, are you going to tell me why you were sending your location so urgently to someone?" She should have lied. She should have laughed, made a joke, ended the conversation. But there was something about the way he asked. No judgment, just genuine curiosity that made her hesitate. "I was confirming my shift with a friend," Elena improvised, hugging the roses like a shield. "She was picking me up after work." Damien watched her for a long moment. Too long, as if he could read the lies between the lines of her words. "I see," he finally said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe her. Before Elena could say anything else, the restaurant manager appeared, clearly nervous. "Mr. Cross, what an honor to have you here. Your usual table is—" "I didn't come for dinner," Damien interrupted, still looking at Elena. "I just came to meet the person behind the message." The manager blinked, confused. Damien finally looked away from Elena and handed over a business card. Cream paper, gold embossed lettering. "If you need to send coordinates again, to the right number this time, my contact is there." And then, without another word, he turned and left. Elena stood there holding red roses and a business card that simply said, "Damien Cross CEO, Cross Enterprises +1 312 555 0147. She looked at the door he had left through, then at the flowers in her hands. What the hell had just happened? That night, when Elena finally returned to her small apartment in Logan Square, she placed the roses in a makeshift vase made from a glass jar. From the next room, she heard a soft sound, a child stirring in his sleep. Elena entered the carpeted room where a 4-year-old girl slept wrapped in blankets. Her blonde hair was tousled, her face angelic, and a teddy bear clutched to her chest. "Lily," Elena whispered, adjusting the blanket. "You're safe. I promise you're safe." But as she said this, Elena felt the weight of the business card in her blazer pocket. Damien Cross, CEO, billionaire, and she was a hostess secretly raising a child that wasn't legally hers. 2 worlds that should never touch. But something told her that after that night, their lives had already become intertwined in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The man who knew too much. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small bedroom, staring at the ceiling as the sounds of Chicago filtered through the thin walls. Distant sirens, the rumble of the L train 2 blocks away, someone's TV playing too loud in the apartment below. Normal sounds. The soundtrack of a normal life, except nothing about her life was normal anymore. In the living room, Damien Cross's business card sat on the coffee table like a live grenade. Elena had stared at it for 20 minutes after putting Lily to bed, turning it over in her hands, running her thumb across the embossed gold letters. Damien Cross, CEO, Cross Enterprises. She'd Googled him, of course, who wouldn't? The search results were overwhelming. Forbes articles, Business Insider profiles, photos of him at charity galas, always alone, always with that same unreadable expression. Net worth, $3, $2 billion, age, 32. Industries, tech acquisitions, real estate development, venture capital. And then, Buried on page 3 of the search results, she found something else. A 2-year-old Chicago Tribune article with the headline, "Cross Family Tragedy, Billionaire's Niece Vanishes Without Trace." Elena's blood had turned to ice as she read. Sophia Marie Cross, age 2, disappeared from her home in Lincoln Park on the night of March 14th. The daughter of Damian Cross's younger sister, Victoria Cross Bennett. The child vanished while her mother was reportedly asleep. No signs of forced entry, no ransom demands, no leads. "We will find her," Damian Cross told reporters at the time, his face haggard with grief. "Whatever it takes, we will bring Sophia home." But 2 years later, Sophia Cross remains missing. The case has gone cold, and the Cross family, once Chicago's golden dynasty, has fractured under the weight of unanswered questions and blame. Elena had closed her laptop with shaking hands. She'd walked into Lily's room and watched the little girl sleep, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. Lily, the 4-year-old she'd found 18 months ago, wandering alone in the parking lot behind the restaurant at 2 a.m., wearing a dirty pink dress and no shoes, crying for her mama. Lily, who couldn't or wouldn't tell Elena her real name. Lily, who had no identification, no family looking for her, no record of existence that Elena could find. Lily, who might be Sophia Cross. No, that was impossible. Lily was 4. Sophia would only be 4 now, too. The timeline matched, but thousands of children were 4 years old. It didn't mean anything. Except Lily had been found just 8 blocks from Lincoln Park. Except she had blonde hair and blue eyes like the photo of baby Sophia in the news articles. Except she sometimes hummed a lullaby that sounded expensive, classical, like something a wealthy family might play in a nursery. Elena rolled onto her side, pulling her knees to her chest. She'd made a mistake 18 months ago. A terrible, irreversible mistake. She should have called the police the moment she found Lily. Should have reported the abandoned child to the authorities. But Elena had been so scared. Scared of the questions. Scared of the system. Scared that Lily would disappear into foster care and never be seen again. So she'd kept her, hidden her, became the only mother Lily had known for the past 1.5 years. And now Damian Cross, whose niece had vanished without a trace, had walked into her restaurant holding roses, looking at her with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see straight through every lie she'd ever told. It was a coincidence. It had to be. But Elena didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Damian Cross sat in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, a glass of scotch untouched on the table beside him. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Elena Hartley, the hostess with green eyes that held secrets and hands that trembled when she took the roses. There was something about her, something fragile and fierce at the same time, like a bird with a broken wing that would still bite if you tried to help it. Why had she sent those coordinates? More importantly, why had she lied about it? Damian had spent 15 years building an empire by reading people. He could spot a lie from across a boardroom. And Elena Hartley had been lying through her teeth when she said she was just confirming her shift with a friend. People didn't send urgent location pins for shift confirmations. They sent them when something was wrong, when they needed help, when they were scared. What was Elena Hartley scared of? He pulled out his phone and opened the brief background report his head of security had sent over an hour ago. Nothing invasive, just public records, the kind of surface-level information anyone could find with a little effort. Elena Marie Hartley, age 27. Address, 2847 N. Kedzie Ave, Apt 3B, Chicago. Aisle employment, hostess, Aurelia Restaurant, 3 years. Education, 2 years at DePaul University, dropped out criminal record, none known associates. Marissa Chen, co-worker. David Hartley, estranged father, Texas. Financial status, struggling. Multiple late rent payments. Student loan debt. Recent credit card charges for children's clothing and pediatric clinic visits. Damian's finger had stopped on that last line. Children's clothing. Pediatric clinic visits. Elena Hartley didn't have children. At least there was no record of any children connected to her. No birth certificates, no custody arrangements. No social media photos of kids. So why was she buying children's clothes and visiting pediatric clinics? Damian set down his phone and stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city glittered below him like a circuit board of light and shadow. Somewhere out there in a modest apartment in Logan Square, Elena Hartley was hiding something. And Damian Cross had spent 2 years drowning in the mystery of his missing niece. 2 years of dead ends and cold leads and the soul-crushing guilt of failing to protect the one person who had needed him most. His sister, Victoria, hadn't spoken to him in 18 months, blamed him for not being there that night, for being too focused on his business empire to notice that her marriage was falling apart, that her husband was using again, that she was one bad night away from catastrophe, and then Sophia was gone. Just gone. Like a ghost. Like she'd never existed at all. The police had investigated everyone: Victoria, her ex-husband Marcus, the nanny, the neighbors. They'd found nothing. No evidence of kidnapping. No evidence of foul play. No evidence of anything. It was as if a 2-year-old child had simply evaporated into the Chicago night. Damien had hired the best private investigators money could buy. He'd offered $1 million reward. He'd personally reviewed thousands of tips and leads. Nothing. And then, tonight, he'd walked into a restaurant on impulse and met a woman with frightened eyes who was secretly caring for a child she had no legal claim to. Maybe it meant nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, it meant everything. The next morning, Elena woke to Lily's small hand patting her face. Lena, wake up, I'm hungry. Elena blinked, her body heavy with exhaustion. Hey, sweetheart, what time is it? The clock says 8:30, Lily announced proudly. She'd been learning her numbers from the educational videos Elena played on her old laptop. 8:30, that's right. Elena forced herself to sit up, running a hand through her tangled hair. Okay, let's get you some breakfast. They went through their morning routine. Cereal and orange juice for Lily, black coffee for Elena. Lily chattered about her stuffed animals and the cartoon she wanted to watch, oblivious to the storm of anxiety churning in Elena's chest. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. Girl, where were you last night? I waited at Starbucks for 30 minutes, you okay? Oh God, Marissa. The person she was actually supposed to send her location to. Elena quickly typed back. I'm so sorry, I got confused and sent it to the wrong number. Long story. Can we meet today? I need to talk to you about something important. The response came immediately. Wrong number? LOL, who'd you send it to? But yeah, I'm off at 2, coffee? Elena hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should she tell Marissa about Damien Cross? About the roses? About the creeping fear that her carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse? Before she could respond, there was a knock at her apartment door. Elena froze. Nobody knocked on her door. Ever. She didn't have friends who dropped by. Her landlord always called first. Deliveries were left in the lobby. Stay here, she whispered to Lily, who was happily eating her Cheerios at the small kitchen table. Elena approached the door cautiously and looked through the peephole. Her heart stopped. Standing in the dingy hallway of her apartment building, looking completely out of place in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her rent, was Damien Cross. He was holding a coffee cup from some expensive cafe she couldn't afford, and looking directly at the peephole as if he knew she was watching him. How did he find her address? More importantly, why was he here? Elena's mind raced. She couldn't let him in. Lily was right there in the kitchen, visible from the doorway. If he saw her, if he even suspected. The knock came again, firmer this time. Elena, Damien's voice came through the door, calm and certain. I know you're there, we need to talk. Elena pressed her forehead against the door, her hands trembling. This was it. The moment everything fell apart. She took a deep breath, smoothed down her oversized sleep shirt, and opened the door just wide enough to slip into the hallway, pulling it closed behind her. Damien raised an eyebrow at her defensive positioning but didn't comment. How did you find my address? Elena demanded, keeping her voice low but sharp. I'm a billionaire, Elena. Finding addresses is embarrassingly easy. He held out the coffee cup. Caramel latte. I took a guess. She didn't take it. What do you want? Damien's expression shifted, becoming more serious. I want to know why a hostess who makes $30,000 a year is buying children's clothing and making visits to pediatric clinics. The blood drained from Elena's face. He knew. He'd investigated her. Of course he had. That's none of your business, she said, but her voice came out weaker than she intended. You're right, it's not. Damien stepped closer and she could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody. But I'm making it my business. Because 2 years ago, my 2-year-old niece vanished without a trace. And last night I met a woman who's clearly hiding a child she has no legal connection to. So yes, Elena, I'm making it my business. Elena felt like she was going to be sick. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. Don't lie to me. His voice was gentle but firm. I can help you. Whatever situation you're in, I can help. But I need you to tell me the truth. Behind the apartment door, Elena heard Lily's small voice. Lena? Who are you talking to? Damien's eyes widened slightly, and in that moment Elena knew there was no going back. The truth in pieces. Time seemed to suspend itself in that narrow hallway. Damien's eyes locked onto the apartment door, his body going rigid as Lily's voice drifted through the thin wood. Elena watched his face transform, the careful businessman mask cracking to reveal something raw underneath. Hope, fear, desperate, aching need. "How old?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elena's throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "How old is the child in there, Elena?" "4," she managed, the words scraping out like broken glass. Damien's hand moved toward the doorknob and Elena's body reacted on pure instinct. She grabbed his wrist, surprising both of them with her strength. "Wait," she pleaded. "Please, just wait, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you're hiding a 4-year-old child in a 1-bedroom apartment? That you've been lying about her existence?" His voice was rising, control slipping. "My niece would be 4 years old right now, Elena. 4. Do you understand what that means? She might not be. Let me see her." It wasn't a request. Elena's mind raced through impossible options. She could refuse, but he'd call the police. She could run, but where would she go? She could fight, but she'd already lost. "If I let you in," she said slowly, "you have to promise me something." "I'm not promising anything until I promise me you won't scare her." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Whatever happens next, whatever you do to me, she's just a little girl. She's been through enough. Promise me you won't scare her." Something in Damien's face softened. "Just slightly. I promise." Elena released his wrist and opened the door. The apartment was small, painfully so by Damien's standards. A worn couch covered with a crocheted blanket, a coffee table with coloring books scattered across it, a tiny kitchen where a child sat at a fold-out table, her legs swinging as she ate cereal. Lily looked up when they entered, her blue eyes curious and cautious. She was beautiful. Blonde curls that needed brushing, porcelain skin, delicate features. She wore pajamas with cartoon cats on them, and there was a milk mustache on her upper lip. Damien stopped breathing. Elena watched him carefully, ready to intervene if needed. But Damien didn't move. He just stared at Lily with an expression of such profound longing that it hurt to witness. "Lily," Elena said gently, moving to crouch beside the little girl's chair. "This is my friend, Mr. Cross. He came to visit for a minute. Can you say hello?" Lily studied Damien with the serious assessment only children could manage. "You're very tall," she observed. A sound escaped Damien's throat, something between a laugh and a sob. "I am," he agreed, his voice unsteady. "You're very observant." "I'm 4, Lily announced, holding up 4 fingers. "I'm going to be 5 on my next birthday, but Lena says we don't know exactly when that is yet." Elena's heart shattered. Damien lowered himself slowly into a crouch, bringing himself to Lily's eye level, careful not to get too close. "What's your full name, sweetheart?" Lily's expression clouded. "Just Lily. I don't remember the other part. Do you remember your mama? Or your papa?" The little girl's face scrunched up with concentration. "I remember. Singing. Someone used to sing to me. And there was a room with stars on the ceiling, but that was in the before time." "The before time?" Damien's voice cracked. "Before Lena found me," Lily explained matter-of-factly, returning to her cereal. "I don't like to think about the before time, it makes my tummy hurt." Elena put a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Okay, baby, you don't have to think about it." Damien stood abruptly, turning away, his shoulders heaving with silent emotion. Elena watched him struggle to compose himself, one hand braced against the wall. "We need to talk," he said finally, not turning around. "Alone." Elena nodded to the small bedroom. "Lily, sweetheart, can you watch your cartoons for a few minutes while the grown-ups talk? I'll be right in the other room, okay?" "Okay." Lily hopped down from her chair, completely unbothered, and ran to the couch where Elena's laptop was already set up with YouTube Kids. Elena led Damien into her bedroom, barely big enough for a double bed and a small dresser, and closed the door. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Tell me everything," Damien said finally, his back still to her. "From the beginning. And Elena, don't leave anything out." So she did. Elena told him about that night 18 months ago. It had been a Thursday, late shift. She'd been taking out the trash around 2 a.m. when she heard crying. Not the normal city sounds. This was different, desperate, terrified. She'd found Lily in the parking lot behind the restaurant, huddled against a dumpster in a filthy pink dress, no shoes, no coat despite the cold March wind. The little girl had been hysterical, screaming for her mama, shaking so hard Elena thought she might shatter. "I called out," Elena said, her voice hollow with memory. "I looked around for anyone who might have been with her. There was no one. The parking lot was empty. I checked the nearby streets, nothing. It was like she'd just appeared out of nowhere." Damien finally turned to face her. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Why didn't you call the police?" "I was going to." Elena's hands twisted together. "I had my phone out. I was dialing. But then she grabbed onto me and she was so scared, Damien, so completely terrified, and I thought about what would happen to her. The system. Foster care. I'd been in foster care when I was young and You were in foster care? For 2 years. After my mom died and my dad couldn't handle being a single parent." Elena's laugh was bitter. "It wasn't good. Some homes were okay, most weren't. And I kept thinking, what if she ends up somewhere bad? What if she gets lost in the system? What if whoever left her here comes back looking for her and she's gone? So you kept her." There was no judgment in Damien's voice, just stunned disbelief. "I took her home, just for the night. I was going to call in the morning. But when morning came, she was sleeping so peacefully and I couldn't." Elena's voice broke. "I know it was wrong. I know I should have reported her immediately. But every day I kept her. It got harder to explain why I'd waited. And she started calling me Lena. And she'd have nightmares if I left her alone and I couldn't let her go." "Did you try to find out who she was?" "Of course I did." Elena's voice rose defensively. "I searched missing children databases. I watched the news constantly. I even drove around Lincoln Park with her, hoping she'd recognize something. But there was nothing. No milk carton photos, no Amber Alerts, no desperate parents on TV begging for her return. It was like she didn't exist." Damien's jaw clenched. "You were 8 blocks from where Sophia vanished." "I know. I read the articles last night after you left." Elena met his gaze directly. "But Damien, thousands of children live in that area. The timing matches and she's the right age, but that doesn't mean—" "She talked about a room with stars on the ceiling," Damien interrupted. "Sophia's nursery had a projection system that displayed constellations. My sister installed it when Sophia was born. The air left Elena's lungs. And that lullaby you mentioned in your research, the one she hums sometimes, that's Brahms' lullaby. Victoria sang it every night. It was their thing." Elena sat down heavily on the edge of her bed. "Oh God. I need to be sure," Damien said, pulling out his phone. "I'm going to call my doctor. We can do a DNA test. Discreet, fast. If she's Sophia, then what?" Elena looked up at him with desperate eyes. "What happens to her? What happens to me? If she's Sophia, then she goes home, back to her family, back where she belongs. Her family that lost her in the first place." The words came out sharper than Elena intended. Where was this family for the past 2 years? Where were they when she was wandering alone in a parking lot in the middle of the night? Where were they when she was having nightmares and crying for her mama? Damien's face went cold. "You don't know anything about what happened that night. And you don't know anything about what it took to keep her safe, fed, and loved while you were, what, putting up reward posters? Giving interviews?" Elena stood, anger overriding fear. "I'm not saying what I did was right, but I was there. When she needed someone, I was there. Because you kidnapped her. I saved her." They stared at each other, both breathing hard. "She calls you Lena," Damien said quietly. "Yes. Does she know that you're not her mother?" Elena's throat tightened. "She knows I'm not her mama. She knows her real mama is somewhere else. We don't talk about it much. She's only 4, Damien. She doesn't understand complicated things yet." "What will you tell her when we do the DNA test?" "I don't know." Elena wiped her eyes. "What will you tell your sister if it's positive? That her daughter has been living 8 miles away in a crappy apartment with a stranger for 18 months? Damien flinched. "I'm not trying to be cruel," Elena said more gently. "But there are no good answers here. Whatever we do next, someone gets hurt." A soft knock on the bedroom door made them both turn. "Lena?" Lily's small voice came through. "Can I have more juice?" Elena opened the door, forcing a smile. "Of course, baby, come on." As Lily padded to the kitchen, Damien watched the easy way Elena moved around her, anticipating needs, providing comfort without being asked. The apartment was small and modest, but it was clean, loved. There were children's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a growth chart marked on the wall, library books stacked on the coffee table. This was Lily's home, or Sophia's prison, depending on how you looked at it. Damien's phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Board meeting in 45 minutes. Where are you? He looked at Elena, who was pouring apple juice into a plastic cup decorated with princesses. He looked at Lily, who was humming that damn lullaby under her breath. I need to go, he said. But we're not done. I'm arranging the DNA test, a private lab completely confidential. It can be done here, just a cheek swab. Results in 48 hours. Elena nodded numbly. And Elena? Damien's voice softened. For what it's worth, thank you. For keeping her safe. For caring about her. Whatever else happens, thank you for that. He left without another word. Elena stood in her tiny kitchen holding a juice cup, feeling the walls of her carefully constructed life collapsing around her. Lily tugged on her shirt. Lena, why are you crying? I'm not, baby, Elena knelt down, pulling the little girl into a fierce hug. I love you so much, you know that, right? I love you too, Lily said simply, squirming away to return to her cartoons. Elena watched her go. This beautiful, resilient little girl who might be about to disappear from her life forever. And somewhere across the city, Damien Cross sat in his car, staring at a photo on his phone. Sophia at 18 months, laughing in her mother's arms, her whole life ahead of her. Was it possible? After 2 years of grief and guilt and unanswered prayers, was it possible she'd been alive this whole time? He made the call to his physician, arranged the test, set everything in motion, and prayed he was ready for whatever truth came back. The weight of waiting, 48 hours. That's how long Elena had to wait for the DNA results that would either destroy her world or save it. The technician had come and gone within 20 minutes, a professional woman in her 50s who asked no questions and made the cheek swab feel like a game for Lily. Open wide like a lion, roar. Lily had giggled and cooperated perfectly, completely unaware that this simple test might rip her away from the only stability she'd known. Now it was Tuesday morning, and Elena stood behind the hostess stand at Aurelia, going through the motions of her job while her mind spun in endless circles. What if Lily was Sophia Cross? What if she wasn't? She didn't know which outcome terrified her more. Girl, you look like death. Marissa appeared at her elbow, concern etched across her face. The senior waitress had worked at Aurelia longer than anyone, 10 years of dealing with demanding customers and entitled hedge fund managers. She'd become Elena's only real friend in this city. You've been weird for 3 days. What's going on? Elena glanced around the restaurant. Lunch service was just starting, but it was slow for a Tuesday. She lowered her voice. Can you cover for me? Just for 10 minutes? Of course. Go. They slipped into the employee break room, a cramped space with lockers, a microwave, and a table covered with health code posters. Elena collapsed into a plastic chair. I think I'm about to lose her, she said quietly. Marissa's eyes widened. Lily? What happened? Did someone report you? Worse. Elena laughed bitterly. I accidentally sent my location to a wrong number, and the person who received it is Damien Cross. The Damien Cross? The billionaire? Marissa pulled out a chair. Elena. What the hell? He showed up here, with roses, and then he showed up at my apartment. Elena's words tumbled out faster now. He investigated me, Marissa. He knows about Lily, and his niece, the one who disappeared 2 years ago. She'd be exactly Lily's age. We did a DNA test. Results come back tomorrow. The color drained from Marissa's face. Oh my God, Elena. If that little girl is his niece. I know. You could go to jail, kidnapping, custodial interference. I know. Elena's voice cracked. I didn't kidnap her. I found her. She was abandoned. But who's going to believe that? Who's going to believe I just stumbled upon a missing billionaire's niece and decided to keep her? Marissa was quiet for a long moment. Do you think she's Sophia Cross? I don't know. Elena pressed her palms against her eyes. She has the right hair color, the right age. She talks about a room with stars, which apparently Sophia's nursery had. But Marissa, there are thousands of blonde 4-year-olds in Chicago. It could be a coincidence. Since when do you believe in coincidences? Elena didn't answer. What does Damien Cross want? Marissa asked carefully. The truth. His niece back. Justice. Elena looked up. And I think maybe he wants to understand how this happened. He's not what I expected. He could have called the police immediately, but he didn't. He could have taken Lily right then, but he wanted to do the test first. He's trying to be careful. A careful billionaire who's convinced you have his missing niece. Marissa shook her head. Elena, you need a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. Then you need to run. Elena had thought about it. Of course she had. She could empty her savings account, all wanting $200 of it, pack a bag and disappear. Take Lily somewhere far away. Montana. Oregon, maybe even cross into Canada. But then what? Live on the run forever? Deprive Lily of school, friends, a normal life? And what about Damien Cross and his family? If Lily really was Sophia, didn't they deserve to know she was alive? I can't run, Elena said. Not from this. Across town, Damien sat in his office, unable to focus on anything. The leather chair felt wrong. The view felt wrong. Everything felt suspended, waiting for confirmation of something he barely dared to hope for. His phone buzzed. Marcus Fung, his attorney, calling for the third time that morning. I know you're avoiding me, Marcus said without preamble, but we need to talk about the Singapore deal. They're getting impatient. Stall them. I've been stalling them for 3 days, Damien. What's going on? This isn't like you. Damien stood and walked to the window. 42 floors below, Chicago moved at its usual frantic pace. People rushing to meetings, to lunches, to lives that made sense. I might have found her, Marcus. Silence on the other end. Found who? Marcus asked carefully. Sophia. Damien. Marcus's voice filled with concern. We've been down this road before. Remember the girl in Milwaukee? The tip in Detroit? Every time you think you found a lead, it breaks you when it turns out to be nothing. This is different. How? Damien closed his eyes. A woman has a 4-year-old child she's been hiding for 18 months. Found her 8 blocks from Victoria's house. The timeline matches perfectly. The child talks about things that match Sophia's life. We did a DNA test. Results tomorrow. Jesus Christ. Marcus exhaled sharply. Who is this woman? Where did she find the child? That's complicated. How complicated? She says she found her abandoned. Took her in. Never reported it. So she kidnapped your niece and you're just, what, having tea with her? Damien, you need to call the police now. I can't, not yet, not until I know for sure. Damien turned from the window. If I'm wrong, if this child isn't Sophia, then I'll have destroyed an innocent woman's life and traumatized a little girl who's already been through hell. And if I'm right, Marcus, if I'm right, I need to understand what happened before I blow everything up. You're thinking like a man who's desperate, not like a man who's rational. I am desperate. Damien's voice was raw. I've been desperate for 2 years. This is the first real hope I've had since the night she disappeared. Marcus sighed. What do you need from me? Research. I need to know everything about Elena Hartley. Not just the surface stuff. I need her history, why she dropped out of college, where she was the night Sophia vanished. Every detail. You think she took Sophia? I don't know what to think anymore. After hanging up, Damien opened his laptop and pulled up the security footage from the restaurant. He'd obtained it through connections. Not entirely legal, but he was past caring about legality. He watched Elena at work. The way she smiled at customers, professional and warm. The way she handled difficult situations with grace. She was good at her job, capable, likable, and she was lying about something. He could see it in the tension of her shoulders, the way her eyes darted to the exit whenever new customers entered. What was Elena Hartley so afraid of? His phone rang again. This time the caller ID made his stomach drop. Victoria Cross Bennett, his sister, who hadn't spoken to him in 18 months. Damien stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. Hello, Victoria. Don't hang up. Her voice was strained, unfamiliar. Please, I need to talk to you. I'm listening. I'm selling the house, the one in Lincoln Park. Where? She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I can't live here anymore, Damien. Every room is a reminder. Every corner has her ghost. I need to move on. Moving on. As if their niece was dead. As if hope was foolish. What about the investigation? Damien asked carefully. There is no investigation. The police closed the case 6 months ago, cold lead. No evidence, no witnesses. She's gone, Damien. We have to accept that. I don't accept that. Victoria laughed, a broken, bitter sound. Of course you don't. You're Damien Cross. You solve problems, you make deals, you control everything. But you couldn't control this, could you? You couldn't save her. The words hit like physical blows. That's not fair, Damien said quietly. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Where were you that night, Damien? I called you 17 times. 17? And you were in Tokyo closing some billion-dollar deal. Too busy to answer your sister's calls. Victoria, I didn't know. You never know, you're never there. And now Sophia is gone and it's... Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't call to fight. I wanted you to hear it from me. About the house. Before you saw it listed online. Damien wanted to tell her. Wanted to say that maybe, just maybe, Sophia wasn't gone. That there was hope. that everything might be about to change, but he couldn't. Not yet. Not until he knew for certain. "Victoria," he said instead, "I'm sorry for not being there, for failing you both. I think about it every day." "I know you do." She sounded tired, defeated. "I have to go. Goodbye, Damien." She hung up before he could respond. Damien sat in the silence of his office, staring at his phone, feeling the weight of 2 years of grief and guilt pressing down on his chest. Tomorrow he'd know the truth. He just prayed he was strong enough to handle it, whatever it was. That evening, Elena gave Lily a bath, shampooing her blonde curls while the little girl played with plastic boats and sang nonsense songs. "Lena," Lily said suddenly, "why was that tall man here?" Elena's hands stilled. "Mr. Cross? He's just a friend. Is he a good friend or a bad friend?" "What do you mean, baby?" Lily turned to look at her with those impossibly blue eyes. "Sometimes in my dreams there are bad people. People who yell. Is he one of those people?" Elena's heart clenched. "No, sweetheart. He's not a bad person. I promise." "Okay." Lily returned to her boat, satisfied. But Elena wasn't satisfied. Those dreams Lily mentioned. She'd been having them more frequently lately. Nightmares that left her crying and clinging to Elena in the dark. She never remembered details. Just feelings. Fear. Confusion. Loud voices. What had happened to this child before Elena found her? After tucking Lily into bed, Elena sat on her couch with a cup of tea she didn't drink, staring at Damien's business card on the coffee table. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "It's Damien. Results come in at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll call you immediately. Whatever happens next, we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this." Elena read the message 3 times. "You're not alone in this." When was the last time someone had said something like that to her? When was the last time she'd felt like someone was on her side? She typed back, "Thank you. I'm terrified." His response came quickly. "Me too." Elena set down her phone and walked to Lily's room. The little girl was asleep, her chest rising and falling peacefully, her stuffed bear tucked under her chin. "I love you," Elena whispered. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I love you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this." Lily stirred, but didn't wake. Elena returned to the living room and tried to sleep on the couch, but rest wouldn't come. She watched the clock tick toward midnight, then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m. In a few hours, everything would change. She just didn't know how yet. At 9:47 a.m. the next morning, Damien sat in his car outside Elena's apartment building, his phone in his hand. The email from the lab had arrived at 9:45 a.m. He'd stared at the subject line for 2 full minutes before opening it. Confidential DNA analysis results. Urgent. His hand was shaking as he clicked. The report was dense with technical language, charts, genetic markers. But at the bottom, in clear, unambiguous text, was the conclusion. Probability of biological relationship, 99. 97%. Conclusion. Subject A, Lily, and Subject B, Damien Cross, share a familial genetic profile consistent with avuncular relationship. Uncle-niece. Margin of error, 0.03%. Damien read it 3 times. Then he put his head in his hands and wept. Great shuddering sobs that came from a place so deep he'd forgotten it existed. Sophia was alive. His niece, his beautiful, precious niece, was alive. For 2 years he'd carried the weight of believing she was dead, of imagining worst-case scenarios, of blaming himself for not being there. And all this time she'd been 8 miles away, living as Lily, loved and cared for by a woman who had every reason to be terrified of him. Elena, who had saved Sophia's life and hidden her from the world. Who could go to prison for what she'd done? Who was waiting right now for him to call with results that would end her life as she knew it? Damien wiped his eyes, straightened his tie, and dialed Elena's number. She answered on the first ring. "It's positive," he said. "She's Sophia. She's my niece." On the other end of the line, Elena made a sound like all the air had been punched from her lungs. "I'm outside your building," Damien continued. "We need to talk. About what happens next. About all of it." "Okay," Elena whispered. "Okay. Come up." Damien ended the call and stared at the building. Everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The price of truth. Elena opened the door before Damien could knock. She looked like she hadn't slept. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. But her spine was straight, her chin lifted. Whatever was coming, she was ready to face it. "Where is she?" Damien asked quietly. "Preschool." A church program 3 blocks away. She goes twice a week. Elena stepped aside to let him in. I thought it would be better if we talked without her here. Damien entered the apartment that now held entirely different meaning. This wasn't just where some woman lived. This was where his niece had spent the last 18 months. Where she'd learned to count, to draw, to feel safe again after whatever hell she'd endured. Coffee? Elena offered, her voice brittle with forced normalcy. No, thank you. Damien remained standing, the DNA report folded in his jacket pocket like a weapon. We need to talk about what happens next. You're going to take her. It wasn't a question. She's my niece, Elena. My family. Yes, I'm going to take her home. Home? Elena's laugh was sharp and painful. To the home she disappeared from? To the family that lost her in the first place? Damien's jaw tightened. You don't know what happened that night. Then tell me. Elena crossed her arms. Because I found a 2-year-old wandering alone in a parking lot at 2 a.m., Damien. Terrified. Filthy. Shoeless. Someone put her there. Someone abandoned her. And now you want me to just hand her back to the people who let that happen? My sister didn't abandon her. Then who did? Elena's voice rose. Who took a toddler from her bed and left her behind a restaurant in the middle of the night? Because someone did. Someone who had access to her. Someone she trusted. The words hung in the air like accusations. Damien moved to the window, staring out at the street below. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, controlled. Victoria's ex-husband, Marcus Bennett. He had a drug problem. Pills, cocaine, whatever he could get. Victoria didn't know how bad it was until it was too late. The night Sophia disappeared, Victoria had taken sleeping pills. She was exhausted, depressed. Marcus was supposed to be watching Sophia. Elena's hands dropped to her sides. What happened? We don't know. Not entirely. Damien turned back to face her. Marcus claimed he put Sophia to bed around 8 p.m., then went to his home office to work. Said he checked on her at 10 p.m. and she was sleeping. But when Victoria woke up at 6 a.m., Sophia's room was empty. Crib still made. Window locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. And Marcus? Lawyered up immediately. Refused to take a polygraph. The police investigated him for months but couldn't find any evidence. No witnesses. No physical proof. Nothing. Damien's hands clenched into fists. He claimed innocence. Said maybe Victoria took her in her sleep. That the sleeping pills made her do something she didn't remember. They destroyed each other with accusations. Divorced within 6 months. Elena felt sick. Do you think he did it? Do you think Marcus took Sophia and left her in that parking lot? I don't know. The admission clearly cost Damien something. I want to believe he wouldn't hurt his own daughter, but he was using heavily at the time. His judgment was impaired. And 8 blocks from the house to where you found her, that's walking distance. If he was high, panicking, maybe he thought he could just leave her somewhere and claim she'd been kidnapped. That's insane. Addiction makes people insane. Damien's voice was heavy with old anger. The police questioned him about locations near the house. They searched everywhere within a 10-block radius. But they never thought to look behind a high-end restaurant. It wasn't an obvious place to abandon a child. Elena sank onto the couch. So for 18 months while you were searching, while your family was falling apart, she was here, 3 miles from your office, right under your nose. Yes, Damien sat in the chair across from her. And you saved her life. I need you to understand that, Elena. Whatever else happened, whatever laws you broke, you saved my niece's life. If you hadn't found her that night, if you hadn't taken her in, I don't want to think about what might have happened. Tears streamed down Elena's face. I didn't know who she was. I swear I didn't know. I just saw a terrified little girl who needed help and I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't let her disappear into a system that wouldn't care about her, that wouldn't fight for her. So I fought for her myself. I know. Damien leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The question is, what do we do now? Elena wiped her eyes. You said we. Yes. Why? You could call the police right now. Have me arrested, take Sophia home, why haven't you? Damien was quiet for a long moment. Because it's not that simple. Sophia, Lily, she doesn't remember being Sophia. She doesn't remember Victoria or me or her life before. All she knows is you. You're her mother in every way that matters to her. I'm not her mother. Aren't you? Damien's gaze was piercing. You've fed her, clothed her, comforted her nightmares, taught her to read. You've sacrificed your own life to keep her safe. That sounds like a mother to me. Elena looked away. What do you want from me, Damien? The truth. All of it. Every detail about the night you found her. Everything she said about her life before. Any clues about how she ended up in that parking lot. He pulled out his phone. I need to know what happened. Not just for my family's sake, but for Sophia's. She deserves to know her story. So Elena told him everything. She described that March night in detail. The way the wind had been brutal. How Lily's dress was torn and dirty. How she'd screamed when Elena tried to touch her at first. The way she'd finally calmed when Elena sang to her. Some half-remembered lullaby from Elena's own childhood. She told him about the first few weeks when Lily barely spoke and flinched at sudden movements. About the slow process of earning her trust. About the nightmares that came every night for months. Dreams where Lily cried for her mama, but couldn't say why she was crying. She had bruises, Elena said quietly, when I bathed her that first night. Bruises on her arms and legs, finger-shaped marks on her upper arm like someone had grabbed her too hard. I took photos. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me knew I'd need evidence someday. Damien's face had gone white. Do you still have the photos? Elena nodded and retrieved her old phone from a drawer. She pulled up the images. Heartbreaking pictures of a tiny bruised child in a bathtub looking at the camera with haunted eyes. Damien stared at the screen, his jaw working. Marcus did this. He had to have done this. Can you prove it? Not yet. But these photos, they're evidence. They prove she was harmed before you found her. Damien stood pacing the small living room. We need to go to the police, show them everything, the photos, the location, the timeline. We can prove that you found her, not took her. And then what? Elena stood too, fear sharpening her voice. Even if they believe me, which is a big if, Lily gets taken away. Put into protective custody while they investigate. Bounced between strangers, traumatized all over again. Is that what you want? Of course not. Damien's control cracked. But we can't just pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. My sister deserves to know her daughter is alive. Sophia deserves to know her real family. She has a real family. Me. You're not her legal guardian, Elena. You have no rights to her. The words were brutal in their honesty. Elena felt her world crumbling. So what are you saying? You're taking her today? Right now? No. Damien ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. No, I'm not taking her today. Because you're right. Ripping her away from the only stability she knows would destroy her. But we need a plan. A way to transition her back to her real life without breaking her in the process. How do you transition a 4-year-old back to a life she doesn't remember? I don't know. Damien met her eyes. But we figure it out together. Both of us. For her sake. Elena wanted to argue. Wanted to scream that it wasn't fair. That she'd earned the right to be Lily's mother through 18 months of sacrifice and love. But she could see in Damien's eyes that he wasn't the enemy. He was just a man who'd lost someone precious and now had a chance to get her back. What's your plan? She asked finally. We tell Victoria. Today. She deserves to know. Damien's voice was firm. Then we bring Sophia, Lily, to meet her. Slowly. In a safe, controlled environment. We let her get to know her mother again without forcing anything. And you're there. Every step. To help her feel safe. And after? When she remembers? When she bonds with Victoria again? Damien's expression softened. We don't erase you from her life, Elena. You'll always be part of her story. Always be someone who mattered to her. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was more than Elena had any right to hope for. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we do it your way. 3 hours later, Elena sat in the back of Damien's town car, a sleek black vehicle that smelled like leather and money, holding Lily's hand as they drove toward Lincoln Park. Lily was confused but excited. Elena had told her they were going to meet some new friends, people who had been looking for someone special and might have some questions for her. She'd promised ice cream afterward. It was a hollow promise, but it was all she had. Are we almost there? Lily asked for the 3rd time. Almost, baby. Damien glanced at them through the rearview mirror. He'd been quiet since they left, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Elena could only imagine what he was feeling, the joy of found hope mixed with the terror of what came next. They pulled up to a brownstone in one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods. Beautiful limestone facade, manicured gardens, iron gates. This was where Sophia had lived, where she'd been lost. She doesn't know yet, Damien said as he turned off the engine. Victoria, I told her I had something urgent to discuss. She thinks it's about the house sale. Maybe we should have called first, Elena said nervously. If I'd called, she wouldn't have believed me. She needs to see Sophia with her own eyes. Lily tugged on Elena's sleeve. Lena, I'm scared. Can we go home? Elena's heart shattered. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm right here. I won't leave you. I promise. Damien came around and opened their door. Together, the three of them walked up the stone steps to the front door. Damien rang the bell. Footsteps inside. The sound of locks turning. And then the door opened, and Elena saw Victoria Cross Bennett for the first time. She was beautiful, or had been, before grief had carved lines into her face and stolen the light from her eyes. Blonde hair gone prematurely gray at the temples, thin to the point of frailty. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater, and she looked at Damien with exhausted confusion. Damien, what are you? Her words died as her gaze dropped to the little girl standing between Elena and her brother. Victoria's face went slack. Her hand flew to her mouth. She made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob, and dropped to her knees right there in the doorway. Sophia? She whispered. Baby? Is that really you? Lily hid behind Elena's legs, frightened by the strange woman's reaction. But Victoria was crying now, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sophia, my baby, you're alive. You're alive. And Elena stood there holding on to Lily, watching a mother reunite with her lost child, and felt her heart break into pieces that would never fit back together again. Where love lives. The first hour was chaos. Victoria couldn't stop crying, deep, racking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere primal and broken. She reached for Lily repeatedly, desperate to touch her, to hold her, to prove she was real. But each time she moved closer, Lily retreated further behind Elena, her small face crumpling with confusion and fear. Mama's here, baby, Victoria kept saying through her tears. Mama's here now, you're safe, you're home. But to Lily, this stranger wasn't her mama. Elena was her mama, or the closest thing to one she could remember. And this woman with wild eyes and grasping hands was terrifying. Stop, Damien finally said, his voice cutting through Victoria's desperate pleas. Vic, you need to stop. You're scaring her. Victoria looked up at her brother, then at Lily cowering behind Elena, and something in her face cracked even further. She doesn't know me, she whispered. She doesn't remember me. No, Elena said gently, still holding Lily's hand. She doesn't. I'm sorry. Victoria's gaze snapped to Elena, really seeing her for the first time. Who are you? Where did you find her? What did you do to my daughter? Victoria, Damien started. What did you do? Victoria's voice rose, sharp with hysteria. Where has she been for 2 years? Why doesn't she know her own mother? Lily started to cry. Elena immediately knelt down, pulling the little girl into her arms. Shh, baby. It's okay. You're safe. I'm right here. I want to go home, Lena. Lily sobbed into Elena's shoulder. Please. I want to go home. The word struck Victoria like a physical blow. Her own daughter was calling someone else's arms home. Damien stepped between his sister and Elena. Living room now. Let's all sit down and talk like rational adults. Victoria, I need you to breathe. Can you do that? Just breathe. They moved into an elegantly appointed living room. Cream sofas, abstract art, hardwood floors that probably cost more than Elena's entire apartment. Victoria perched on the edge of the couch, her hands twisted together, eyes never leaving Lily. Damien stood by the fireplace looking exhausted. Elena sat in an armchair with Lily curled in her lap, the little girl's face hidden against her chest. Start from the beginning, Victoria said, her voice raw but more controlled. Tell me everything. So Elena did. Again. She told Victoria about finding Lily that March night, about the bruises and the terror and the torn dress, about making the impossible decision to keep her instead of calling the authorities, about 18 months of building a life together, teaching Lily to feel safe again, to laugh again, to trust again. Victoria listened with an expression that cycled between rage and anguish and something that might have been understanding. You should have called the police, she said when Elena finished. The moment you found her, you should have... I know, Elena interrupted. Believe me, I know, I've thought about it every single day. But I was terrified she'd get lost in the system, that she'd end up in foster care with people who wouldn't care if she had nightmares or needed someone to hold her when she was scared. I made a choice. Maybe it was the wrong choice legally, but it was the right choice for her. You don't get to decide that. Victoria's composure cracked again. She's my daughter. Mine. You had no right to keep her from me. You're right, Elena said quietly. I didn't have that right. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for the pain you've suffered. But Victoria, look at her. Really look at her. She's healthy. She's happy. She's been loved and cared for. Whatever else I did wrong, I did that right. Victoria stared at Lily, at Sophia, seeing her daughter clearly for the first time. The little girl had stopped crying but remained pressed against Elena, peeking out with cautious eyes. She wore a pink dress with flowers on it. Her hair was neatly brushed, her face clean and bright. She looked like a child who was cherished. The bruises, Victoria said hoarsely. In the photos Damien showed me. How bad were they? Bad enough that I knew someone had hurt her. Elena's voice was steady. Finger marks on her arms, bruising on her legs and back, like she'd been grabbed roughly, maybe shaken. I documented everything. I still have the photos and the clothes she was wearing that night. Victoria's face drained of color. She turned to Damien. Marcus. It had to be Marcus. What did he do to her? We don't know yet, Damien said. But we're going to find out. I've already contacted my legal team. We're reopening the investigation, privately for now. If Marcus took her and abandoned her, he's going to pay for what he did. I want to see him arrested, Victoria said, her voice shaking. I want him to suffer the way I've suffered. He will. Damien's tone was ice. I promise you, he will. Lily stirred in Elena's arms. Lena, I'm hungry, she whispered. Victoria's breath caught. I can make her something. The kitchen. I used to make her favorite foods. Apple slices with peanut butter. She loved that. She still does, Elena said softly. It's her favorite snack. Something passed between the two women then. A moment of shared understanding. They both loved this child. They both wanted what was best for her. But they were on opposite sides of an impossible situation. Can I try? Victoria asked. To give her a snack? To just be near her? Elena looked down at Lily. Baby, this is Victoria. She's a friend of Mr. Cross's. She'd like to get you something to eat. Is that okay? Lily peeked out, studying Victoria with solemn eyes. Okay, she said finally in a small voice. Victoria stood slowly like she was afraid of spooking a wild animal. The kitchen is this way. Would you like to come with me and see? Lily looked up at Elena. Will you come too? Of course, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. They moved to the kitchen, a massive space with marble countertops and high-end appliances. Victoria moved mechanically, pulling out a cutting board, apples, peanut butter. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the knife. Here, Elena said gently, taking the knife. Let me help. Together, they prepared the snack. Victoria watched Elena's easy movements. The practiced way she cut the apples into perfect slices, arranged them on a plate with a small bowl of peanut butter for dipping. This woman knew her daughter's preferences, knew exactly how she liked her food prepared. She doesn't like the skin on, Victoria said suddenly. Even when she was a baby, I always had to peel the apples. Elena paused. She still doesn't. I figured that out the second time I made them. Victoria's eyes filled with tears again. Lily climbed onto one of the kitchen bar stools and started eating her snack, humming contentedly. Victoria sat across from her, just watching, drinking in every detail like she was memorizing her daughter all over again. You have a dimple, Victoria whispered. When you smile. I'd forgotten that. You were so little when. I'd forgotten your dimple. Lily touched her cheek self-consciously. Can I ask you something? Victoria's voice was tentative. Do you remember anything? About before? About living here? Lily's face scrunched up in concentration. There was a room with stars. And singing. Someone used to sing to me. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. I sang to you every night, Brahms' lullaby, every single night. She began to hum the melody. Lily's eyes widened. I know that song. I know you do, baby, I know you do. Victoria was crying again, but these were different tears. Softer. What else do you remember? There was a bear, a big brown bear, and someone who smelled like flowers. Lily took another apple slice, but it's all fuzzy, like a dream. That's okay, Victoria said quickly. That's okay. We don't have to remember everything right now. We have time. But they didn't have time. Not really. Because eventually, decisions would need to be made. Legal custody, living arrangements, the future of a little girl caught between two women who loved her. Damien appeared in the doorway. I need to speak with Elena privately. Elena hesitated, but Victoria nodded. She can stay with me just for a few minutes. I promise I'll keep her safe. It was the first step toward trust. Elena squeezed Lily's hand. I'll be right in the other room, okay, baby? If you need me, just call. Okay, Lena. Elena followed Damien back to the living room, her heart pounding. We need to discuss next steps. Damien said without preamble. The legal reality. Victoria is Sophia's biological mother and legal guardian. You have no legal claim to her. I know that, but Damien held up a hand. Taking her away from you immediately would be traumatic. Dr. Richardson, a child psychologist I consulted, recommends a gradual transition, supervised visits that increase in frequency. Time for Sophia to rebuild her relationship with Victoria while maintaining stability with you. Elena's throat tightened. For how long? Weeks, maybe months. As long as it takes for her to feel secure with Victoria again. Damien's expression softened. And then we discuss permanent arrangements. You mean custody? Yes. And what happens to me in these permanent arrangements? Damien was quiet for a long moment. That depends on Victoria, and on whether we decide to involve the authorities about what happened that night. If we report everything, the abandonment, the bruises, your decision to keep her, there could be legal consequences for you. Prison, possibly, or probation, community service. It depends on how the prosecutor sees the case. Damien moved closer. But Elena, there's another option. If Victoria agrees not to press charges, if we can prove that Marcus abandoned Sophia and you genuinely found her, then maybe we can avoid criminal prosecution altogether. And in exchange, what does Victoria want? Her daughter back, full custody, but Damien hesitated. She's not unreasonable. She saw how Sophia, Lily, clings to you, how much you love her. I think she'd be open to visitation rights, to you remaining in her life in some capacity. Visitation rights. Like Elena was a divorced parent instead of the woman who'd saved this child's life. But it was something. More than nothing. I need time, Elena said. To think. To process all of this. Of course, but Elena, don't run. Please don't take her and disappear. Because if you do, I will find you. And then there won't be any options left except prosecution. It wasn't a threat. Just a statement of fact. Elena nodded numbly. They returned to the kitchen where Victoria had moved closer to Lily and was showing her photos on her phone. Pictures of baby Sophia, of Victoria when she was young and happy, of a family that had once been whole. This is you, Victoria was saying softly, pointing to a photo of a chubby-cheeked toddler. You were 18 months old. We were at the zoo. You loved the penguins. Lily stared at the photo with fascination. That's me? That's you, sweetheart. I look different now. You grew up. Victoria smiled through tears. But you're still my beautiful girl. Elena watched them together and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't about her. It had never been about her. It was about a little girl who deserved to know where she came from, who deserved to have a mother who had mourned her every day for 2 years. But God, it hurt. They stayed for another hour. Victoria showed Lily her old bedroom, now converted to a guest room, but Victoria promised they could make it special again, with stars on the ceiling and all of Lily's favorite things. Lily was warming up slowly, asking questions, touching Victoria's hand tentatively. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged Victoria goodbye. It was brief and awkward, but it was something. In the car ride back to Elena's apartment, Lily fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the emotional day. She'll adjust, Damien said quietly. Children are resilient. I know. Elena stared out the window at the city passing by. Doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. When they reached her building, Damien helped carry the sleeping Lily upstairs. He laid her gently on Elena's bed, and they both stood there for a moment, watching her sleep. Thank you, Damien said finally, for everything you've done for her. I mean that. I love her, Elena said simply. That's all I ever did. I loved her. I know. Damien turned to face her. And for what it's worth, I'm going to make sure Victoria understands that. I'm going to make sure you don't lose her completely. You have my word. It was a promise he might not be able to keep, but Elena appreciated it anyway. After Damien left, Elena climbed into bed next to Lily and wrapped her arms around the little girl. I love you, she whispered. No matter what happens, no matter where you go, I will always, always love you. Lily murmured something in her sleep and snuggled closer, and Elena let herself cry. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, she let herself break down completely, because she knew that the days ahead would require strength she wasn't sure she had, would require letting go of the person who mattered most to her in the world. But for tonight, for just a few more hours, Lily was still hers, and that would have to be enough. 3 weeks later, the transition was happening. Slowly, painfully, but it was happening. Lily, Sophia, now spent 3 afternoons a week at Victoria's house. Elena came along for the first week, then started leaving for an hour at a time, then 2 hours. Building independence, building trust. Sophia was remembering things, little pieces, the way Victoria used to braid her hair, the lullaby, the taste of Victoria's homemade mac and cheese. The memories were coming back like scattered puzzle pieces, slowly forming a picture of the life she'd lost. And with each memory, Elena felt herself becoming less necessary. Marcus had been arrested. The evidence, Sophia's testimony, the bruises documented in Elena's photos, security footage showing him driving in the direction of the restaurant the night Sophia disappeared, was enough for the police to build a case. He'd confessed to everything in exchange for a plea deal. He'd been high, panicking, convinced he'd hurt Sophia during a drug-fueled episode. Instead of calling for help, he'd driven her away and left her behind the restaurant, thinking someone would find her and she'd be safe. It was cowardice. It was unforgivable. But it was the truth. Victoria was in therapy. So was Sophia. They were healing together. And Elena was learning to let go. She stood now in Damien's office. He'd asked her to come, said he had something important to discuss. "I spoke with Victoria," Damien said, gesturing for Elena to sit, "about permanent arrangements." Elena's heart stopped. "And? She wants full custody, legally, but..." Damien pulled out a document. "She's willing to grant you formal visitation rights. 2 weekends a month, Wednesday evenings for dinner, holidays on a rotating schedule. It's not parental custody, but it's legal protection. She can't take Sophia away completely." Elena stared at the papers. "She's willing to do this?" "She is. Because she understands what you did for her daughter, and because Sophia loves you. She doesn't want to take that away from her." Damien paused. "There's something else." He handed her another document, a job offer letter. "Cross Enterprises is opening a family foundation, focused on missing children, foster care reform, family reunification services. We want you to run it. Salary of $85,000 a year, full benefits, the chance to make sure what happened to Sophia, and to you, doesn't happen to other children." Elena couldn't speak. "You saved my niece's life," Damien said quietly. "Let me give you the chance to save others." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "Why? Why are you doing this?" "Because sometimes," Damien said, "broken things can be made beautiful again, if the right people are willing to fight for them." 6 months later, Elena sat on a blanket in Grant Park, watching Sophia play on the playground with 3 other children. It was a sunny Saturday in late spring, the kind of day that made Chicago feel like the most beautiful city in the world. Victoria sat beside her sipping iced coffee, relaxed in a way Elena had never seen before. "She's thriving," Victoria said. "Her therapist said she's making incredible progress." "She is," Elena agreed, her heart full. "Thank you," Victoria said suddenly. "I know I didn't say it enough at the beginning, but thank you for loving her when I couldn't, for keeping her safe, for giving her back to me. You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Victoria met her eyes. "You're her family too, Elena. Always." Sophia ran over then, breathless and laughing. "Lena, Mom, did you see me on the swings? I went so high." She called Victoria Mom now. And Elena, "Lena, 2 different loves, both essential." "We saw, baby," Elena said, ruffling her hair. Damien appeared with ice cream cones. "Who wants chocolate?" "Me. Me." Sophia jumped up and down. Over the past months, something unexpected had grown between Elena and Damien. Friendship first, then something deeper. They'd been through hell together and come out the other side. They understood each other's scars. As the afternoon sun painted the city gold and Sophia ate her ice cream and laughed, Elena realized something profound. Sometimes love meant letting go. Sometimes it meant fighting. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it meant finding a way to do both. She'd sent a message to the wrong number, and it had changed everything.